Divine light guides us all.
How about you, Mel Shine? How about you, Mel Shine? Rakata Yahweh Shine. Rakata Yahweh. Rakata Yahweh. Rakata Yahweh Shine.
Psalm 145. I will extol thee, my God, O King, and I will bless thy name forever and ever. Every day will I bless thee, and I will praise thy name forever and ever. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised, and his greatness is unsearchable. One generation shall praise thy works to another, and shall declare thy mighty acts. I will speak of the glorious honor of thy majesty, and of thy wondrous works. And men shall speak of the might of thy terrible acts, and I will declare thy greatness. They shall abundantly utter the memory of thy great goodness, and shall sing of thy righteousness. The Lord is gracious and full of compassion, slow to anger, and of great mercy. The Lord is good to all, and his tender mercies are over all his works. All thy works shall praise thee, O Lord, and thy saints shall bless thee. They shall speak of the glory of thy kingdom, and talk of thy power, to make known to the sons of men his mighty acts, and the glorious majesty of his kingdom. Thy kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and thy dominion endureth throughout all generations. The Lord upholdeth all that fall, and raiseth up all those that be bowed down. The eyes of all wait upon thee, and thou givest them their meat in due season. Thou openest thine hand, and satisfiest the desire of every living thing. The Lord is righteous in all his ways, and holy in all his works. The Lord is nigh unto all them that call upon him, to all that call upon him in truth. He will fulfill the desire of them that fear him. He also will hear their cry, and will save them. The Lord preserveth all them that love him, but all the wicked will he destroy. My mouth shall speak the praise of the Lord, and let all flesh bless his holy name ever. Show my love for you.
Abanawa, Shabashimayim, Kodash, Haya, Shemka, Yahweh, Malakwithka, Taba'a, Ratazaka, Haya, Aisha, Ba'arataza, Kawa, Haya, Bashimayim, Naflanawa, Lakum, Kal Yawam, Wasalaklanawa, Khawabwatnawa, Kasalak Nawa, Kawabwati Nawa, Tabaya Nawa, Banasayawan, Abo, Haushai Nawa, Mayan, Rai Kaya, Laka, Hamalakwath, Waha Allah, Wahata Ba'arath, La Iwalamium, Aman.
How about you, Mel Shine?
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise unto and glory unto Yahweh Bahashim, Yahweh Shah Bahashim, Kakadash. Double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards young brothers. And peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds. In the name of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. And what I want to get into, all right, today, dealing with the transition of the curses, a beautiful thing to see. All right. And I got this video and it goes into, the history of, the racism, the systemic racism, and how Esau Edom, was able to become a superpower in the earth, okay, as a nation of people because of the labor, all right, of Israelites, okay. And, this Jake, he's informative, but one thing that this Jake doesn't understand is the concept of the curses. You see, our people, they think, just because they're black, all right, that they get to play the victim and that they're entitled. Okay. But one thing about the truth, it gives us the understanding of the why. Okay, we understand that what has happened to us as a people was allowed by a higher power for our disobedience. Okay, and the whole point of this captivity was for us to repent. But only the elect will repent, within this captivity, which we'll go into all these things on brothers are. Okay. And that's why it's a beautiful thing, to have understanding, because it puts our spirit at rest, because you have Jake, that, still trying to figure it out. Some certain Jakes are, trying to figure out like how can we get our people back right, how can we get our people back whole, you see, how can we be restored as a people? And they look at, Esau, Edom, and he only prospers in his way. Well, only the scriptures give the answers. Okay. So let's go here. Let's deal with this. Let's get some precepts and then play the video and get some more precepts. Lord will, this is edifying. So you go to Jeremiah 3:15. It says, and I will give you pastors according to my heart, which shall feed you with knowledge and understanding. All right. And in this time, the Lord has raised up pastors, prophets, beginning with the ministry of Elder Abba Bivens, okay, which has, was the beginning of this great ministry of camps all over the world. All right. Camps, Babylon being saturated with camps. Okay. America, aka Babylon the Great. Okay. Spiritual Egypt. Okay. Is saturated with camps that's feeding our people with knowledge and understanding. So now we see the why, and now we got hope in what's to come. Not only do we know why we went into captivity, we have a hope to what's to come for our captors, man. Okay, because Esau Edom had done too much. Okay, we was giving it to this nigga hand, but he's done too much. Okay, so you go here, because Jake is going to talk about, particular things, and well, these things are explained in the curses. Okay, because one of the main things that, because we didn't, what made me, and I know, a lot of you may have the same, story, the same testimony, that the curses really sold me that we was the people. When brothers started breaking down the curses, when I first started hearing the truth, and brothers started going into the curses, I was like, ain't no doubt about it. When brothers went into the curses, I was like, ain't no doubt about it. There's us. So going here, let's go. This is Deuteronomy 28, okay, and 15. It said, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon you and overtake thee. Okay, so these curses, would be a sign, a token, all right, of who we were as a people. Okay, and this was promised to happen to us if we disobeyed. Okay, and we disobeyed. Okay, and these curses came upon us just as the Lord had promised. Okay, so when you go through the curses, all right, Deuteronomy 28, we're gonna jump around. It says the Lord, because when I first came in, I was just going over the curses front to back. Like some of my first videos was just on the curses, like this is us. You look at the curses, then you look, pulling up the stats, pulling up, you pull up the stats, the income per household, and this and that, me and El Zahar used to be into that, tough, going into these curses, man. But yeah, you go into these curses, man. This explains our people and their circumstances, and our circumstances to a T. Okay. Deuteronomy 28:28 said, the Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. Okay. And you look at our people, it's a blind people, madness. Look at the culture of our people, man. And each generation gets worse. It's a culture of madness. You see, our people are more, every generation is more lost than the generation before, more blind than the generation before. Okay? And it says, and thou shalt grope at noonday, and the blind say as the blind growth in darkness. Yeah, because Jake is trying to find the way. And Jake is just groping. Christianity failed. Now Jake talking about the ancestors. Now Jake talking about the universe. Now Jake is an atheist. They're groping. Okay? This was promised to us, man. So you look at our people, it's a people that's groping for a way. All right, like someone that's blind. You know, you groping, that means like someone's blind and they're walking, but they're reaching out for things, okay, to try to find their way. Okay, and that's what Jake is doing. You see? And they're just a people that just been groping. You know, Jake done been a Moor or 5%er, okay, Islam, okay. Anything you can think of, you know, our people have tried it. Pan-Africanism, Egyptologists, okay, that's a people that's groping. Okay, Jake done tried to do the politics way. You see? And it says, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee, man. Okay, and that's been the plight of our people, only oppressed evermore. All right, and it went from chattel slavery, you know, that hardcore bondage, to a systemic slavery. Okay, to where Jake is systemically, okay, oppressed and spoiled, all right, and not meant to prosper. You got a few Jakes that'll break through the crack, okay, and you got a few Jakes that they allow, you know, to give these, you know, to allow to be in a certain position to give this illusion of inclusion, okay, but as a people, nothing is set up, all right, for us to win or thrive as a people, all right, and there's no, all right, and there's no man, you know, amongst our people, no so-called leader, okay, that's been able to restore our people, all right, because their task is for Yahweh Shai. You see? So jumping down, getting to, they read 43, said, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above. Matter of fact, I'm going to play the video. I'm going to say these curses here, because he's going to explain it, then we'll come back to it, you know, because he's going to go into some things. So we'll get back to that. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the video. We're going to come back to them curses. You see? Oh, Ratazah. Well, let's go here. I was saying, Jake, he makes some points. And we bring out some info. A lot of people just don't understand, you know, the concept of us being punished, you know.
America is collapsing right before your eyes. The banks are failing. The middle class is vanishing. Police violence is everywhere. And trust in the government? Gone. Evaporated into headlines and hollow speeches. But here's the truth they won't tell you. Black America has already lived through this collapse for 400 years. The poverty that shocks you now, we were born in it. The police brutality filling your feeds, we've been screaming it for generations. The wealth gap that suddenly feels like a crisis, we never had wealth to lose. You're watching the empire eat itself. And for us, it's just history on replay. Because everything devouring this country now was tested on us first. Every policy, every prison, every broken promise of freedom. So ask yourself, how did Black Americans see this collapse coming before anyone else did? What tactics perfected in our neighborhoods are now spreading everywhere? And why, after centuries of warning, is the empire finally eating itself alive? This isn't a prophecy. It's deja vu. The collapse already happened. We just lived through the trailer first. When your cities burn, we remember ours burning first. When your paychecks shrink, we remember working for none at all. When your leaders lie, We remember when those lies were written into law. What's breaking you now is just the echo of what broke us centuries ago. The system didn't collapse on its own. It got engineered to extract, and we were the first to pay. So if you think America is collapsing, you're only seeing the sequel. The first showing played in black and white, and nobody listened. The original sin. Building wealth on stolen bodies. They tell you America became great through innovation and hard work. They're lying. Its wealth was built on oppression, and now the cracks are widening. For black people, the collapse isn't coming. It's already on the horizon. The greatest heist in human history didn't happen in secret. It happened in broad daylight, signed by presidents, protected by law, and blessed by churches. By the time anyone called out the theft, the thieves had already turned their spoils into an empire. By 1860, if the South had been its own country, it would have ranked as the fourth richest nation on earth. That wealth came from one source: enslaved black people who never saw a penny. Cotton was king, and every ounce of its gold-lined crown was picked by black hands. The South produced 75% of the world's cotton supply, feeding the entire global economy. But here's what they never taught you in school. The market value of enslaved people was 7 times the total US currency in circulation. 7 times. More wealth was tied up in black bodies than in every bank, railroad, and factory.
So the Edomites had the most valuable thing on the planet Earth, which was Israelites. All right, and it shows you the value of us as a people. You know, to these devils was able to enrich themselves, all right, by our captivity, our labor. Okay, showing you the most valuable people on the planet Earth, man. Jake was worth more, okay, 7 times more than currency, man, and infrastructure. Okay, so the devils, you know, this was their platform to spring into being a superpower. These Edomites, you know, they pushed this selective, you know, natural selection, and you know, them being the superior people. No, you had the superior people in captivity. Okay, you're not superior. You had the superior people in captivity. We was giving it to your hands. Okay, matter of fact, let's get a few precepts on that. Okay, you devil was able to profit and prosper so much because you had the superior people, okay, in captivity, man. Okay, and it was due to our disobedience. Okay, so let's go here. Matter of fact, let's get that in the curses, and then we get a few more. It says, "The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low." And this is what, you know, he's going into, because these devils made so much profit from slavery, you know, and the trauma and, you know, the damage that was done to us as a people brought us low. Okay, but Esau, where he became very high, he became the most exalted heathen in the earth off of the captivity of Israelites, man. Okay, and they put him in position of what? A lender. He put him as a position as the head. When you read verse 28, he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Okay, so this captivity, you know, the transatlantic, you know, slave trade, okay, the triangular trade, you know, you look into their history. Well, this is how this nigga became the head of the heathens. You know, this is how this nigga became the chief of the earth, was through that captivity, man. Okay, the wealth, you know, the infrastructure was built, you know, the manufacturing that was started off of this, man. Everything this devil got comes off enslaving Jake, man. And this nigga presents this narrative like he was just this hard-working, ingenuitive, innovative, okay, nation of people. Nah, man, you benefited off having, all right, the superior people in captivity. These people being given over to you. That was your come up. Okay, but you took it too far and you became proud against the Most High. Okay, now you're eligible for what? Great judgment. You see, it says, "And thou shalt not lend to him, but he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail." Okay, and this is what we're seeing. Okay, as we're going through this lesson, this is the process of him becoming the head. Okay, when you watch this video, this is the process of him becoming the head, and we're becoming the tail. So the South supplied, okay, America with no, supplied the world with 75%. The South was responsible for 75%, okay, of the world's, all right, cotton supply. Okay, that's crazy. If the South was a nation of itself, it would have the fourth largest economy in the world. Okay, during the peak of slavery, man. Okay, and why is that? You see, because of Jacob. You see, verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hast hearkened not unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Okay, so these curses, will overtake us as a people. And you look at us, all right, you look at our people as a whole, it's a people overtaken by these curses, destroyed, defeated, man. You see? And this was all a punishment from on high. Okay, but in the midst of that, all right, the Lord will show, mercy and awaken a remnant, okay, to come back to him. And that remnant has started the process of being restored. We're being restored from the curses now. We still have to deal. We in this cursed system, and we can't have sovereignty, okay? But following Yahushua begins the restoration process now. See, when Yahushua comes, he's just going to finish it, okay? But the remnant is being restored, as we speak. Their restoration has begun. We all a work in progress, of being restored as a people. All right, but it begins with us being restored back to this wisdom, this understanding, to righteousness, man. Okay, and we're gonna be perfected when we're changed at the coming of Yahushua, man. Then we're gonna be restored back to this status, okay, under Yahushua, man, and righteous government that's gonna be established in the earth. So the water, Yahushua Yahushua for restoration, man. Okay. It says, and this the point, verse 46. It says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So you go into this word, all right. Sign. Look at this word, sign. All right, in the Hebrew. It is ahath. Okay. Ahath. So you go here to the definition. It says a distinguishing mark. Okay. And these curses distinguish us from all the people on the earth. Okay. It's a distinguishing mark of who we are. Like I said, one of the things that persuaded me about the truth of the curses, man. Okay. And it says an omen, a banner, it says a token, ensign, standard, miracle, or proof. Okay, proof. This is for sure proof of who we are as a people. So when you go into what has happened to us as a people, okay, the outcome, how our people are destroyed, all right, have been overtaken, and these curses have defeated, our people, man. Okay, but there's a remnant whom the Lord will bring out of it, man. Will bring to a victory over everything. Okay, because victory over the beast is victory over the curses. Okay, victory over everything, man. And there's a remnant that the Lord set aside, okay, for that victory, man. Okay, so let's go back to the video.
And the wealth didn't stay confined to the South. It flowed north, fueling an entire nation. Northern textile mills in Massachusetts and Rhode Island spun that cotton into profit. Wall Street bankers issued bonds backed by enslaved people as collateral. Insurance companies in Connecticut sold policies protecting slave owners from loss if a person
Thou shall be sold for bond men and bond women. Mutual life insurance. Okay? Drake was sold as bond men and bond women. Okay? You can't get around it. All right? Deuteronomy 28 and 68, we was bond men and bond women. Okay? So we was stocks. Okay? We were stocks and bonds to be traded. Wall Street. Okay? You can't get around it. All right? So let's play some more.
escaped or died. The entire architecture of American capitalism, property law, banking, corporate contracts, insurance, was built to protect wealth extracted from black bodies. Human beings became assets. Flesh turned into finance. America's first stock market didn't rise on industry. It rose on human lives. For 250 years, black labor generated trillions in wealth, not metaphorical wealth, literal capital that built railroads, funded universities, and filled vaults with gold. Then came 1865. The 13th Amendment ended legal slavery, but freedom came with nothing attached. No land, no tools, no payback for centuries of stolen labor. Meanwhile, white families who had grown rich from that theft kept every dollar, every acre, every head start. The people who built the house weren't even allowed to sleep on the porch. And you'd think that's where the story ends, but it's not. Because the government wasn't done stealing from black people. What came next would lock us out of wealth for another century. Before we go further, if you're realizing these connections for the first time, subscribe to Black Stories Untold. We're exposing the patterns they've spent centuries hiding. Now, let's talk about what happened next. The housing trap. How government created the wealth gap. They didn't leave it to chance. They drew it. In the 1930s, the federal government hired men with rulers and stamps to color the future of American cities. Neighborhoods with black families went in red and got the label hazardous. Not for crime, not for economics, but for race. This didn't rely on private prejudice. Federal policy orchestrated it, executed with ruthless, bureaucratic precision. The government flooded the housing market with low-interest, federally backed mortgages, while steering almost none of that capital to black families. Homeownership stopped being just a roof. It became a college fund, seed money for a business, and a ticket into better schools. A generational advantage handed out and stamped, not for you. They codified exclusion. Developers added restrictive covenants to deeds using sample language from the Federal Housing Administration. Whole suburbs rose engineered to exclude black families. Black doctors and veterans found the same doors closed. Banks denied loans. Realtors refused to show houses in appreciating areas. And when black families managed to buy, they paid more for less. The consequence stacked across generations. By the time housing discrimination became illegal, white families had decades of federally subsidized appreciation in the bank. Black families had been blocked at every turn. Today, the median white family holds roughly 10 times the wealth of the median black family. Homes in formerly redline neighborhoods lag far behind the old best zones. Numbers hide the mechanism. Property taxes fund schools, so redline neighborhoods get underfunded classrooms. No home equity means no collateral for business loans, strangling entrepreneurship before it starts. Credit systems punish those locked out of wealth-building tools. Young black adults carry credit scores far below white peers, and that gap widens with age. A black family with advanced degrees can still have far less wealth than a white family with less education. The pattern is brutal and simple. Exclusion compounded into inheritance, investment, education, and opportunity, generation after generation. They blocked our wealth through housing, But if you want to keep an entire population poor forever, real estate isn't enough. You also lock them up. The modern plantation. Mass incarceration as control. A White House advisor once admitted, "We couldn't make being black illegal, so we found another way." And that way has shaped every law, every policy, and every system meant to control black lives in America. They criminalized survival, community, and the tools black people used to thrive. They flooded neighborhoods with drugs, then built prisons to cage the fallout. When the advisor later confessed, nobody faced consequences. The machine was already running. The government declared drug abuse public enemy number one. But the so-called war on drugs never fought drugs. It waged war on people. Prison numbers exploded. Today, millions are locked behind bars, half for drug offenses. 2/3 are black or Latino. And drug use shows no difference across race. The disparity was engineered. 5 grams of earned the same sentence as 500 grams of powder. A 100-to-1 ratio. Crack was labeled a black drug, powder, a white drug. Chemically identical, but one filled prisons while the other didn't. Young black men are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated than white peers. Nearly half of black males face arrest before age 23. Police violence compounds the crisis. Black Americans are 3 times more likely to be killed by police and 5 times more likely to be unarmed. Of those killed, 18 to 24-year-olds represent nearly a third, a small demographic suffering disproportionately. The trauma radiates. Research shows police killings of unarmed black Americans create tens of millions of additional poor mental health days annually. This isn't PTSD, it's ongoing trauma. A felony conviction follows a lifetime. No housing, no loans, no professional licenses, no voting rights. Poverty becomes criminalized, then permanent. The plantation didn't end, it evolved.
The plantation didn't end, it evolved. Okay, it became more systemic and it became more of a psychological warfare amongst Jake, because you go into the prison system and the drugs, all right, which there was a chemical attack on Jake, and we always go into it began with the feminist movement because he know in order to flood, all right, Jake, okay, with psychological warfare, with these enchantments, where he had to get the man out the house, okay, and once he was able to begin to make it normal, all right, for no fathers to be around, all right, the devil began to go all out on psychological warfare, chemical warfare, okay, with the drugs, there was chemical warfare, and then he glorified, all right, a culture, a lifestyle, okay, that will send Jake to prison. What you call the black exploitation movies. You see, you go into the black exploitation movies, well, they glorify all, okay, the behavior, okay, that was illegal. It glorified criminals, they glorify pimps, hoes, and drug dealers and gangsters and street niggas. See, Esau glorified these things. There was psychological warfare, okay, to where as men, the men of our nation, okay, we looked up to those things. These things became our role models, okay, and women looked to these men as the alpha males, okay, as the men of choice. You see, and it created a cycle of degeneracy, man. Okay, to where most of Jake, they're born prison bound. Okay, but it begins with imprisoning their mind first. That's why when you go here, let's get this real quick. It started with imprisoning Jake's mind first. All right, and once Jake's mind, was in prison, well, it manifested into them going into literal prisons, man. Okay, so you go to Isaiah 42:22, but this is a people robbed and spoiled, and we've been robbed and spoiled of everything, but it's a punishment. It's one thing, we can't play the victim. No, this is a punishment, and this punishment was meant for us to repent, Okay, but this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivered, for a spoil, and none saith restore. Okay, so it began with Jake minds being robbed and spoiled, because we was robbed and spoiled of a culture, a heritage. Okay, we had a standard, we had, all right, a heritage. Okay, but during slavery, man, these things were beaten out of us, man. Okay, Jake has been, and we are recovering. You know, one thing you have to stand in this, understanding this truth, man. We're recovering from true mental illness, man. Okay, captivity did a number on us, man. There's a lot of trauma that we inherit. Okay, there's a mental illness that we inherit as a people. Okay, that has us robbed and spoiled. You know, we suffer from low self-esteem, identity crisis. Okay, we've been robbed and spoiled, man. Okay, the names were taken away from us. Who we are as a people, our identity was taken away. We was robbed and spoiled. The Most High stripped us down to nothing, man, in His anger. But in His mercy, He has started what? To restore us, man. But in this system, nothing is meant to restore us as a people, man. Only make us worse. Okay. So under the system of Edomite supremacy, man, the minds of our people have been robbed and spoiled, and it leads to the outcomes, all right, the repeated outcomes of each generation. And it only gets worse because their mind is spoiled. Okay, they are all of them ensnared in holes, man. Christianity, that's a hole. Street culture is a hole. Feminism, that's a snare in the hole. That's a prison house for the mind. Okay, and it manifests dealing with Jake, you know, into actual prison. You know, that street nigga, that street culture, that's a snare in the hole. Okay, to try to be this dope boy, this mobster, this, you see, that's a snare of the mind. Okay, which fills the actual prison houses, man. Okay, but the prison house starts in the minds of our people. Okay, that's why it's like our people stuck in the same cycle, the same loop. Each generation repeat the same mistakes because their mind is in the snare, in the hole. Okay, it said they are for a prey and none delivered. You know, and with that mindset, you're an easy prey. That's why he can easily say a war on drugs and then fill the prisons up, because Jake becomes an easy prey because he has, you know, glorified their culture. You know, and you have the bulk, you know, you have a lot of our people participating in it, and just make themselves an easy prey. Okay, just like now with the whole ICE thing, you know, push what he was pushing, violent criminals, dealing with Jake. You know, got sent ICE to the inner cities for the violent criminals. Okay, so Jake that lived this lifestyle, okay, this you know, this community violence, well, they make themselves an easy prey, an easy target. Okay, in this system, man. Okay, so this devil, his whole thing is to get Jacob to fall in the snare and the trap of this particular way of thinking. Okay, where he glorifying poor decision making. You know, poor decision making is glorified and honored amongst our people. Okay, Esau, you know, he puts his Hollywood machine, you know, the music, the movies, the entertainment, now social media, okay, to afford terrible decision making. And now Jake is just a prey for this system to devour them, man. You know? So let's go from there. Let's read verse 23. It said, who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? And there's a remnant, you know, that the Lord has given, you know, an ear to hear and eyes to see, you know, and awaken. See, we stepped out of this cycle of destruction, man. Because our people, they're still in this cycle of destruction, man. You know, and it's going to continue on until the day of great judgment at the return of Yahushua. Okay? Because Yahushua is coming to finalize all judgment, man. The judgment of the heathen, beginning with Esau, okay, and these heathens and their militaries, Okay, then all the way to 2/3. He's just going to finalize that judgment, man. He's going to do a great reset on the 2/3, man. You know, and they'll come back in their right mind through the loins of the 1/3. You know, but there's a suffering that 2/3 have to go through in these last days, man. Lord will not of that number, man. Okay, verse 24. Who gave Jacob for a spoil and Israel to the robbers? So who put us in this predicament? This is what our people don't understand. You know, they try to play like they're these innocent victims. Nah, man. We was strategically put in this situation. We was intentionally put in these circumstances, man. Okay, did not the Lord? Okay, Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, he against whom we have sinned, we offended. You know, this captivity was supposed to make us consider our ways, man. Okay, that was one of the main, all right, intentions of this captivity is for us to consider our ways as a people, man, and to appreciate righteousness. Now you have a remnant that thirsts for righteousness, man. We want to see righteousness established, man. We don't want no goddamn, all right, reparations, and we're not looking forward to another black president. Okay, another black Wall Street. That ain't the healing. The healing is righteousness, man. Okay, through Yahweh Shai, man. That's the healing. Okay. So now we understand that the righteousness is the foundation, all right, of a global rulership. You see, we starting to think on the above level, man. Okay. You know, Jake complained and, you know, they try to offer these solutions that ain't, you know, economical solution, political, you know, we need education. See, we need more degrees. No, man, that's not, we can't degree our way out of this, man. Okay. Repentance, that's the only way. And then the Lord gonna take it from there, setting everything right. Okay. It said, for they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law, man. Okay. So let's go here. So disobedience put us in this position, but obedience through faith is taking us out of it, man. You know, and that's all the Lord required was obedience, man. See, the Lord can handle the rest. You know, what Jake be trying to do for themselves, the Lord already got that figured out. Okay. The economy, you know, politics, and the Lord already got all that figured out, man, through Yahweh Shai. Okay. His thing with us, he just wanted us to be obedient, man. Okay. And this is what the elect, you know, have returned to is obedience. Okay. So let's play this some more.
They perfected these tactics on us. But now those same tactics are spreading to everyone. The blueprint spreads. Every weapon tested on black bodies doesn't stay there. Eventually, it turns, aimed at everyone else, creeping silently through the cracks of a society built to protect a few. This isn't accidental. Systems built to crush people don't stop when you ask nicely. They crave more. And America is running out of black people to feed it. Stop and frisk policing got perfected in black neighborhoods, with officers stopping people without probable cause. Evidence of crime appeared in only 3% of stops, but the program continued because control mattered more than justice. Police militarization followed. The 1033 program funneled military-grade equipment to local departments. The first armored vehicles, combat gear, and tactical weapons went to communities already under siege, where fear kept people in line. Predictive policing algorithms trained on decades of biased arrest records now send officers to the same neighborhoods repeatedly. It looks scientific, but history is repeating itself. Automated. These tactics didn't stay in black neighborhoods. They spread. Surveillance technologies tested on black streets now monitor suburbs and rural towns. Militarized police forces that patrolled inner cities now patrol opioid-ravaged white towns. Predatory lending that crushed black homeownership decades earlier fueled a nationwide mortgage meltdown, helping trigger the 2008 financial collapse. For decades, black neighborhoods existed as deserts. food deserts with no fresh groceries, banking deserts where check cashing businesses replaced banks, healthcare deserts with distant, underfunded hospitals. Now, those deserts are spreading to deindustrialized towns, Rust Belt cities, and hollowed out suburbs. The playbook refined on Black communities is being deployed everywhere. Systems built on extraction eventually run out of people to extract from. And when that happens, they start eating themselves. We've been here. You're just arriving. Black people aren't prophets. We don't predict. We witness. And what we've seen, the world is only beginning to feel. For 400 years, we've stood at the finish line of America's race to the bottom, watching everyone else sprint toward disaster while screaming warnings that nobody wanted to hear. Now you've arrived. Welcome to where we've always been. When the pandemic hit, Black communities suffered first and hardest. The same neighborhoods redlined decades ago faced the worst health outcomes. When recessions strike, Black unemployment spikes higher and lasts longer. When banks fail, Black neighborhoods lose the most. When tough on crime laws pass, Black people fill the prisons. We've survived what keeps trying to destroy us. We created jazz, blues, rock and roll, and hip hop, the soundtrack of America, while being denied entry to the venues where it thrived.
So he going into these, now everyone's feeling it. All right, everyone is feeling what it's like to be a nigga, but he's going into, Jake resilience, which, when you go into that, all right, music still didn't heal or restore Jake. Jake was always able to, because even in poverty, Jake is still, all right, has influence even in poverty because of who we are as a people. Okay, but that's not the point of slavery. See, the brother Nahalia out there in Orlando made a beautiful point. Me and him was talking the other day, and he went, the problem with Jake was never ability. Of course, as a people, we have tremendous ability. The problem with Jake was humility. Okay, we need to learn humility. This captivity was for us to humble down. Okay, and the elect, all right, as we began to heal, we began to become humble. We began to learn humility, man. Okay, and that's what the Lord wanted us to be, was humble, because pride put us in captivity because we got out of pocket with the Most High. Okay, because we had wealth. You see, matter of fact, let's get there real quick. You see, Jake think wealth is a fix-all, okay, or being famous, or being popular, or being recognized is, a solution. Nah, man, we had that before, okay? We had sovereignty before, okay? Because all these, music, music and celebrities, and they still captivity. See, we had sovereignty, okay, and we got out of pocket, okay? So the problem ain't, with Jake's ability, it's with humility, okay? That's what the Lord wanted to instill in us in this captivity, was humility, man, okay? The Deuteronomy 32:15 said, but Jeshurun waxed fat, was Yashawan in the Hebrew, which means upright one, okay, which is another name for Israel. But Jeshurun waxed fat and kick. Thou art waxing fat, thou art grown thick, thou art covered with fatness. We was well taken care of, man. Okay, we had abundance. You see? As we, the Lord was our power, he was our provider, our protector. Okay? We had abundance, man. We was in a good case. Then he forsook the Most High, which made him, and lightly esteemed the rock of his salvation. Okay, we got beside ourselves, we got proud. Okay? Jake got, we got curious in wickedness, man. We felt entitled. We became entitled as a people and forsook our power. Okay, they provoked him to jealousy with strange gods. With abomination provoked they him to anger. They sacrificed unto devils, not to the Most High, to gods whom they knew not, to new gods they came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Okay, so going after other gods, strange gods, man, made us degenerate as a people. Okay, and it made us displeasing to our power, and He will allow us to be taken, man. And this last time, show His anger because the length of this captivity and who He put us in captivity under, man. The devils, the Edomites, man, the nation that hates us the most. Okay, so they sacrifice unto devils, not to God, to gods whom they knew not. Okay, so He sacrificed the devils, the demons, not to the Most High. All right, to gods, these false gods whom they knew not, to new gods that came newly up, whom your fathers feared not. Okay, and today you can equate that with Christianity, Islam, Egyptologists, and all this madness that our people are into outside of Yahweh Bashim Al Shai. Okay, and this is what puts us in a predicament to be, all right, a prey to these nations, is when our disobedience makes us a prey to these nations, man. And it's through obedience that's going to make us rulers forever. Okay, and this is the understanding, that the Lord is allowing the elect to come back into, man. Okay, it says, of the rock that begot thee, thou art unmindful, and has forgotten the Most High that formed thee. And when the Lord saw it, He abhorred them, or avoided us, because of the provoking of His sons and of His daughters. And He said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be. They are a very forward generation, children in whom is no faith. Okay, so what the Lord did, He fell back from us, man. When you look at slavery and you go through slavery, and you're like, damn, this happened to us as a people, and our people are offended. Well, why would a God allow this? Why would it? Well, it was because of our disobedience, man. Okay, we offended. All right, He didn't turn from us while we was obeying Him. Okay, we turned from Him while He was providing for us. Okay, show you that Jake's ability was never in question. Okay, it was Jake's humility. Okay, Jake's discipline and obedience. That was, okay, the thing that became displeasing to the Most High. Okay, Jake became proud, man. So this captivity is a humbling, man. But you still have a lot of our people that refuse to humble down. They're doubling down in their rebellion. And there's a punishment for that. That's why you go here to Micah. Okay, you go to Micah chapter 7 and verse 9. Okay, it says, all right, it's accountability. Okay, the Lord wanted us to take accountability. Okay, and from there, He wanted us to repent. And repentance is showing accountability, like, oh, we off. We need to change. And that was what the Lord wanted the whole time. Well, for us to recognize, like, damn, we need to change. We off. Okay? The Heavenly Father's on point. We off, man. Micah 79 says, I will bear the indignation of the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, because I have sinned against Him. Until He plead my cause and execute judgment for me, He will bring me forth to the light, and I shall behold His righteousness, man. Okay? So we have to bear the Lord's indignation because of what we did. All right? And the Lord's getting ready to plead our cause, man. He's going to take the earth to war, man, beginning with Esau, Edom. He's going to execute righteous judgment for us, man. That's why we don't have to march. Okay? We don't have to, try to get in politics and try to change laws and, in favor for black people. Nah, man. The Lord's finna is bigger than black people, man. The oppression is amongst all tribes, man. So-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Okay? And even Israelite foreigners whom look like other nations, man. So this is not a thing of color. And this is not, confined, all right, to just black people, so-called black people, man. Okay, the Lord's coming to bring judgment for all tribes, man, of the elect. Okay, at this time, you see, and he's bringing us forth to His light, which is understanding, His wisdom. Okay, and it's going to bring us forth to His righteousness, man. When Yahweh Shai comes and establishes righteousness in the earth, man. Okay, Lord will, we're going to be brought forth to be joint heirs with Yahushua if we endure. Okay, so you go here. Let's go here to Deuteronomy. All right, 30. This is Deuteronomy 30:1. It says, "And it shall come to pass when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse." Because we receive the blessings, as a people, and read now under the curse. So it said, when all these things are come upon you, the blessings and the curse. Okay, so we receive both. And right now we're still in the curse. Okay, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, man. We start to remember ourselves. Our pure minds have been stored up by this word, by this doctrine. That's why you have camps springing up from amongst all these different nations, man. That's us calling these things to mind, the Lord allowing our pure minds to be stirred up by the preaching of His word. It said, "Whither the Lord our power have driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord our power, and shalt obey His voice in repentance, according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul." Okay, which you can't keep the law perfectly, man, but our intent, okay, is to do right, man, to rehearsing the righteous acts to the best of our ability, and we're covered by that sacrifice of Yahweh where we fall short, which is making us blameless, man. There's a continual sacrifice, all right, because of what Yahweh did. Okay, there's a continual sacrifice that's active, all right, that's actively, covering us for what we fall short. But the intent is to be obedient. Okay, and the Lord is dealing with the intent. Okay, and it's through faith, man, because you got to have faith that we're covered. Because what would be the point of even doing right if we didn't believe that we was covered? Okay, for what we fall short. You have to believe in that sacrifice. You have to believe in Yahweh. You have to believe in the resurrection that He's coming back to get us, man. Okay, Deuteronomy 30:3. Then it said that then the Lord our power will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord our power have scattered thee. Okay, and it begins with us being gathered by this word. See, this is the good news. Okay, and this is why we don't have any expectation in this world, man. Our expectation is what's promised in the scriptures, man. We don't have any expectation in this world. All right, we're not looking forward to the promises of these politicians, or somehow some Jake's just going to have this ability that's going to forward us as a people, through Jake just natural talent and gifts, and somehow just going to be a perfect combination that's going to restore us as a people. Nah, man, we don't have any expectation in that, man. This is our expectation. Okay, it says, "If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost," all right, to the outmost parts of heaven, from thence the Lord our power, it says, "From thence will the Lord Yahweh Bashim Shai thy power gather thee, and from thence will He fetch thee," man. And it begins with His word. Okay, this word is going throughout the earth and is gathering, okay, the elect. And Yahweh Shai is going to come in that chariot and physically gather the elect. "And the Lord our power will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and He will do good to thee and multiply thee above thy fathers," man. So we finna be in a good estate, man. This is what we hang to, man. Okay, we're not looking for niggas to thrive in America, man. Niggas to finally get it and thrive in America, man. And it's some black utopia in America. Nah, man. We finna go home, man. America finna be a desert. This place finna be X'd off the map, man. Lord finna judge this place, man. Okay, true justice, man. See, we understand true justice now, man. Okay, and it ain't, all right, a fair shake in America. That's not justice, man. The Lord gonna turn this place to a desert. Okay, and He's gonna put the people that enslaved us in captivity under us, man. Okay, and we're gonna rule the earth in righteousness, man. That's judgment. That's righteous judgment, man. You see? And it says, and the Lord thy power will circumcise thine heart, which is thy mind, okay? Which is what he will begin to cut away at the filth, okay? That was cultivated in us in this captivity, man. Through this word, the word like unto a sword, two-edged sword, man. You see? And it's cutting away at the filth of this kingdom, of this wicked kingdom, man, of Esau, okay? That was in our minds, man. It says, in the heart of thy seed to love the Lord thy power with all thy heart, with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord Yahweh Shema Shai, thy power, will put all these curses upon thy enemies and upon them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And now we're seeing this transition, man. Okay, and it only gets worse for you, you American Edomites, man. All right, it only goes downhill from here. Okay, because you're finna suffer. All right, and your elites. All right, the Lord got a spirit on your elites to be cruel unto you. Okay, now you finna get nigga treatment. All right, at the end of this thing. Okay, you're a two-time loser. And you're gonna be born back into captivity through your elites. Okay. And y'all all gonna be in captivity together. Okay, you and these elite families. All right, so the common Edomite, all right, to the elite banking families and elite families of, okay, Esau, Edom, of Amalek, y'all gonna be in captivity together, man. And y'all gonna be under these curses that we had to endure, man. Okay, so that was the point. Just wanted to bring that out. Lord will you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified. Till next time, I say shalom, Kwame Mashallah, a Bible soon, shalom.